Hey y'all, here are OS Reviews. It's actually been a few years since we've checked out an Amazon Fire tablet. These are low-cost tablets which run on Amazon's version of Android and have been heavily customized. However, if you are an Amazon customer subscribed to services like Prime, it can be a pretty compelling value. Now, tablets in general have waned a bit in popularity as smartphones became larger. However, in the past few months, there's been a bit of a resurgence, along with Amazon themselves announcing the Fire 11 Max, which is their highest-end tablet. However, the subject of this video will be the Fire HD 10 Plus as opposed to the new Max 11, as I would argue it's a slightly better value for a Amazon branded tablet. During promotions like Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and other events which are more and more frequent, this tablet, at least in the refurbished version, which is pretty much like new, can be picked up for only $85. Plus, Amazon does have a pretty generous trade-in offer, so if you do have an older generation tablet, an old Kindle, it can even be broken, a Fire TV stick, you're able to further knock 20% off of the purchase price in addition to get another gift card. And that brings down the cost of this base model with 32 gigs to as low as only around $50 when you are shopping around, making it one of the most inexpensive 10-inch tablets which has a full HD display. That is compared to the Max 11, which has a 11-inch screen that retails for $230, but often goes on sale for $150, and then similarly with that 20% discount off the original price, it gets you closer to around the $100 price range. But this thing again is half the price of that. Both the newest Max 11 and this 10 Plus have the same 4GB of built-in RAM. So in terms of multitasking at least, the performance isn't going to be that far apart. Plus, both of these tablets are using octa-core MediaTek processors, although the Max 11 is technically a slightly newer chip. In day-to-day usage, I would argue that the difference isn't huge, especially on a more watered-down version of Android like Fire OS that we see here. So you get a pretty similar experience, to be honest, all wrapped in a slightly more compact frame, and that is partially because this 10 Plus, this current gen model, actually was last revised in 2021. So it's expected that Amazon may pack in even higher end chipset if they refresh this model perhaps next year. Regardless, it still offers one of the higher end computing experiences from an Amazon product, which is to say it's not going to really rival an iPad or more performant high-end flagships on the market, but still good enough for light usage. This 10 Plus can be considered as a more light version of the Google Pixel tablet. I make that reference because the Fire 10 Plus also has a show mode, transforming it into an Echo Show of sorts, very similar in concept, in fact, to what Google has on their Pixel tablet, since once you dock that tablet onto its wireless charging base, it also transforms into this show mode, allowing you to interact with the voice assistant, acting as a digital photo frame, listening to music, and also control home automation devices as well. And the same thing applies to the Fire 10 Plus, which supports Qi wireless charging, and Amazon even sells an optional separate dock which will automatically activate this show mode as well. So taking a closer look at the hardware in terms of the design on the front, this is a 16:9 aspect ratio IPS LCD screen which is fully laminated. So there is no gap between the glass and the screen underneath. It actually looks surprisingly vibrant and has good viewing angles, and you are able to watch Netflix videos in full HD as well. You also find virtual keys on the bottom there for going home, back, and also multitasking, although all Amazon Fire tablets to date don't support gesture navigation yet. The top houses a 2-megapixel camera for video conferencing. Then on the left-hand spine, there's access to a 3.5mm headphone jack, USB Type-C for charging and data, which maxes out at 15 watts, not the fastest, but it can juice up the tablet in around 2 hours to full, and otherwise you have around 12 hours of screen on time with a lower brightness level, which is actually quite good for an Android tablet. There's also multiple microphones along the different sides to pick up your voice when you're using it in the assistant mode. There's also a power key and a volume rocker, and then on the top there are stereo speakers on here which are Dolby Atmos certified. Finally on the back here there is a 5-megapixel rear camera but no LED flash, and on the bottom here there is a lip covering up the microSD card slot for expanding the built-in memory. Again, there's either 32 or 64 gig base model models, but having this slot is excellent, something that I think more tablets really should have. The entire body here, by the way, is coated in a layer of soft touch rubber, which further draws similarities to that Google Pixel tablet, which is also kind of soft to the touch. Doesn't feel quite as cheap or hollow as on some of the lower end Fire 7 and 8 tablets, for instance, including even the regular Fire HD 10, which by the way can also be found for around $10 to $15 less, which uses the same MediaTek P60T processor, however has 3 gigabytes of RAM as compared to 4 gigs on this Plus model, coming in around 470 grams, so easy enough to tout around. Here's also a quick size comparison with the Kindle Scribe, being their largest Kindle and also note-taking device that has a 10.5-inch screen, but you can tell how it's going to be a little bit boxier because of this lip for holding it. Granted, one way that Amazon is able to subsidize the cost of the hardware and make them so cheap is by form of advertisements. Although you are able to pay to remove the ads completely, to be completely honest, I don't think it's too obtrusive. It really shows up only on this lock screen for a split second. Once you're in the main UI, it goes away. One thing that is convenient on the Fire 11 Max, however, is the presence of a fingerprint scanner, which is missing on the 10 and the 10 Plus. Also mentioned that a 9-watt USB Type-A charger, Type-C cable, as well as a quick start guide are included in the box. So if you want the fastest charging performance, you'll be better served by picking up one of your own chargers. But again, the presence of Qi charging is quite convenient. However, despite the 5 to 6 years of security patches, the physical OS level updates are rare. For example, Fire OS 7, which this tablet shipped with, is actually based on Android 9, even though we are now on to Android 13. For context, the Fire Max 11 tablet is technically running on Android 11. Amazon's skin on top of Android is so thick that it doesn't really resemble stock Android anyways, so they all look quite similar regardless of the technical version that's being run underneath the hood, which is Amazon's argument. However, it's quite simple to actually root and also install regular Android OS on these tablets if you desire. There are plenty of tutorials that you can look up online, usually just taking a few minutes, and you'll be able to sideload not only the Play Store, but also be able to access a clean version of Android. So that can certainly be worth looking into and just, again, makes it an even better value. But taking a look at Fire OS as it is, at least it is really simple. The main page here just aggregates your commonly used applications. You'll be able to stream back Amazon's own original series as well as some other content that they have under their Prime catalog. Obviously, it's not quite as extensive as Netflix, but for Amazon, this can be considered as more of a perk, since with Prime, you also get other services bundled in, including the faster shipping, as well as also free book content that you can read, even cloud gaming that is bundled into Prime subscription as well. So jumping into Amazon Luna, which is an alternative to something like the xCloud from Microsoft and Xbox, you are able to play a selection of games for free with Prime, including Fortnite, and this will be a rotating roster. Some newer titles might be added, other months they might be removed, and it's not quite as extensive as if you were a full Luna subscriber, which will unlock even more titles, but you still get a hint of what is available here. And personally, I have only interacted with the Fire 7 tablet in the past, which is actually their cheapest tablet that used to sell for only around $30 when it went on sale, but it's obviously weaker in terms of specs. In fact, only having a quad-core processor to this day and something like 2 gigs of RAM, earlier versions had even less. So you had noticeably weaker performance. Even system navigation felt choppy at times, but on the HD 10 Plus, I think very similar to the Fire 11 Max, at least you don't really have to worry about that. Swiping over to the left also gives you more recommended content, so you can check out additional apps. They also include their own Amazon App Store by default, which isn't quite as complete of a roster as the Play Store, although most of the larger names are present, including streaming services, social media apps. But say if you're looking for more niche games, as well as certain applications for connecting, let's say, a smartwatch, something that's a little bit more third-party, oftentimes it may not be present But because this thing is running on Android, you can obviously sideload APKs yourself, or again, sideload the Play Store entirely by following some of the quick tutorials online. A handful of utility tools are also built on in. It's kind of de-Googled in a way. For example, for maps, we're using Nokia's Here Maps. And similarly, you can use voice to search on any text box, although it's also using Bing by default as opposed to Google. Amazon Fire Max 11 specs. And there we go. Plus, if you do sign in to your Microsoft account, you are able to also leverage some of their integration with ChatGPT. Closer look at how it fares if we load up a more complex site on the Silk browser, which in the early days of Fire tablets actually was advertised to be faster than competing Safari as well as native Chrome. Because Amazon was doing a little bit of processing on their servers, it's similar to what Opera Mini does, in fact. These days, though, I wouldn't say the difference is huge, but overall, even on not the most powerful hardware, I would consider this kind of mid-end. It still is loading quite well, even on more desktop class sites like The Verge, plenty of articles, different ads, videos, and it still is responsive enough when it comes to scrolling. You can also use split-screen multitasking, as you can tell here, similar to the Fire Max 11, and be able to interact with the two windows at once and rescale them, working well enough, I'd say. Now, if you are pressing the tablet really hard, including doing a bit more of intensive gaming, the section here on the right bottom corner does get a little bit warmer after about 30 minutes of use, but it never really overheats either. And one other difference compared to the aforementioned Google tablet as well as the Fire Max 11 would be stylus support. So if you really do need that for note-taking, then you would have to penny up for the higher-end model, unless you want to just use a regular capacitive stylus. And as far as keyboard support is concerned, there is also a keyboard case which Amazon sells that can be an optional addition, although it doesn't have a trackpad at the bottom. But you can also pair it obviously to any wireless keyboard or mouse of your choice, and works well enough if you want to type in longer documents and emails. A Prime membership, by the way, also gives you unlimited backups to Amazon Photos. So that is an alternative to Google Photos. So on the camera front, it is, again, very basic, but like most tablets, as long as it can snap documents, it's okay for video conferencing. I would say it's adequate. And does also have a night mode plus an HDR mode that you can select. Otherwise, very basic UI, and don't expect miracles, but again, for some basic text document scanning, preserving some quick photos, it certainly works. Also doing a quick demo of what the speakers sound like next. So takeaway being that actually not shabby sounding speakers, surprisingly. They are actually louder than expected and do have that sense of stereo separation, plus video content in general loads up very quickly, whether it's YouTube, Netflix, or Amazon Prime Video. I had really no complaints there as far as the antenna and reception quality is concerned. So you can access YouTube from just the regular browser, or you can use a youtube.com, basically a bookmark, as well as some third-party apps available from the Amazon App Store. This does have picture-in-picture mode as well. So if you minimize the screen while you're watching a video, it will show up as a floating window. Library tab here on the side also shows you your own content that you have purchased on Amazon, including any books. And although I usually prefer reading on a Kindle with an e-ink display that just is better on the eyes and just feels closer to regular paper, this is not bad if you are in a darker environment because of the backlight, especially for colored books and comics in general. It shines on this larger screen. If you leave this book and then try to open it again on your computer or on another Kindle, it will remember your place and automatically sync to the correct position. Amazon also has their music service as well, which is tied in with Prime. So you are able to listen to internet radio as well as different albums and music. It's not quite as, again, competitive as Spotify, for example, which is kind of a recurring theme, but it's the combination of different services that you get tied in from primarily a shopping platform or service provider that I think still makes it a pretty good value, and kind of that kitchen sink approach. So here's also a quick demo of what gaming is like on this unit. So as aforementioned, it's not the most powerful thing in the world, and the Amazon store mostly has lighter games, an example of the type of content that you can find on here. However, again, you can always use Amazon Luna and be able to do some cloud gaming. Here's an example of what gaming via Luna is like. So you do have virtual on-screen controls that pop up if you don't have a Bluetooth controller attached. And overall, not bad in terms of the responsiveness of the game. As long as you have a good enough internet connection, it still seems fast enough compared to what would be possible using just the native hardware of the tablet itself. You can also trigger a profile switcher, so you can set up different accounts on this one tablet, making it more of a family-centric device. So for example, here's a kid's profile that you can set up and have more age-restricted content, including limited websites as well as movies and books that your child is able to read. So this is actually quite well integrated, and then anyone in the family is able to pick one up and start using it. So that is more or less it as far as our review of the Amazon Fire HD 10 Plus tablet, and although it's not the newest release anymore, I think it's surprisingly a pretty decent value. Don't expect this to be a true iPad replacement if you're trying to do more demanding tasks, but if you just need something very light to act as kind of an entertainment hub, being able to control your smart home devices, having that dock mode, plus being able to browse the web, access some of the included Prime services. You can check out more details if interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Fire HD 10 Plus.